Our film starts with a guy tied up. He's surrounded by a bunch of vampires dressed like Agent Smith from The Matrix. An older guy, who's apparently a senator, is wheeled in and is given fake fangs to feed on the guy. Just then, the Frog Brothers break in and attack just before the congressman can be bit. While Edgar goes to free the congressman, Alan gets attacked and is fed vampire blood, turning him. Alan runs off after realizing what happened to him, which explains his non-appearance in the previous film. We then see Edgar get woken up by a knock on the door, as the past scene was a flashback he was having while dreaming. The person at the door is a banker who tells him that he's defaulted on his property and the bank is taking the land. After some scenes of him attempting to sell comic books for money, he comes back to his home and is met by a woman named Gwen, who wants to talk to him about vampires, which he tries to deny exists. She explains that her brother Peter was kidnapped after a rave run by a guy named DJ X, and she believes vampires are involved, and the drugs they're selling there, called the Thirst, is laced with vampire blood. This is bad since in the Lost Boys universe, simply drinking the blood of a vampire can turn a person. He tells her he isn't interested in the case of saving a bunch of drug addicts, and as she leaves, she gives him her card and tells him what hotel she's at if he changes his mind. Next, we see a group of vampires on a plane. We see Peter tied up with an IV sedating him. The vampires in the plane, after doing the Joker who would jump out of a perfectly good airplane line, jump out of the plane without a parachute and then slow walk into an airport. Some journalist confronts DJ X, who apparently didn't see 4 people fall from heaven out of nowhere, and tells him if he doesn't get an interview, he will ruin him. They get in a car, and he gives the guy his interview just before drinking him dry. Back with Edgar, he heads to some gross underground place where he meets with Alan and tries to beg him to do the Thirst case with him. We then get a backstory as to why all the other members of the original cast won't be in the film when Alan asks why he's gone to him, including finding out that the post-credit scene from The Thirst is now canon and Edgar killed Sam during it, resulting in everyone else shunning him for it. Alan turns him down, and after a flashback he goes to Gwen's hotel and agrees to the case. Edgar then exposes that he knows who Gwen is and chastises her for being the author of vampire romance novels, a reference to Twilight, and blaming her books for why people now want to be vampires. This whole scene was done with Gwen changing clothes just in case all the talking got boring. She then introduces him to a guy named Lars and his cameraman, who will be his partner, which Edgar is not too happy about since the guy is a reality star and not qualified, but they go through with it anyway. After another flashback, we see Edgar put a Batman number 14 on Sam's grave, referencing the first movie, and when he gets back to the truck, he finds a note from Alan with a book. He calls a girl he hangs with at a local comic book shop named Zoe to go through it to see if she finds any info. As she does, we see that she's being stalked by a vampire who crashes through the building skylight looking for Edgar. Edgar comes to save her, but he gets thrown out of the way. She then sprays the vampire in the mouth with holy water, causing him to explode. The two go out and she informs him that Peter is most likely going to be sacrificed because a blood moon is coming up. She then informs him of an old slaughterhouse near an island which might be where the vampires are. On the island we see Peter tied up with a female vampire taunting him.
Let's not make any promises we can't keep.
Edgar takes Zoe to see a guy named Blake, who apparently is the congressman from the beginning of the film, who is now a vampire hunter. He buys a bunch of high-tech blade-like weapons from Blake, while Zoe touches a bunch of stuff she shouldn't. As the sun sets, vampires arrive. Blake turns on some UV lamps which delays them, but the vampires eventually destroy them and burns the shack using Molotovs. Blake kills them with a special bullet Gatling gun. The next day, Edgar and Zoe meet up with Gwen and Lars for a very awkward meetup, where Lars hits on Zoe and a swimsuit-clad Gwen gives her the cold shoulder and what seems to be jealousy. When they get to the island, Edgar passes out the weapons and the group gets into an argument because Gwen wants to go and Lars doesn't believe in vampires and thinks he's been hired for a roleplay. Back at the lair, the vampires feed on a couple of kids that were early to the rave.
You guys got here early.
When the hunting crew gets into the lair, Edgar splits the crew up, with Lars and his cameraman going separate from Edgar and Zoe. Lars continues to believe the whole thing is a role-playing game, even though the cameraman isn't so sure and is worried. Lars ends up finding Peter, but instead of rescuing him, he says it's too early in the episode to find him and walks away. Meanwhile, Edgar and Zoe run into the vampire's feeding ground and is jumped by the vampire women who fed on the kids. Lars is then met with the larger henchmen, and they have a fist fight, which of course doesn't go well, being that it's a large vampire versus a reality TV star, and the vampire ends up doing the Kane Mortal Kombat fatality to Lars. As he does, the cameraman stakes the vampire, killing him as well. Back with Edgar, he ends up having a sword fight with the brunette femme vamp where he gets stabbed while Zoe takes out the blonde. Zoe and the cameraman take Edgar out to Gwen to give him first aid. As he loses consciousness, he has more flashbacks to the Frog Brothers meeting Sam before he comes to. They regroup and head to the rave as the sun goes down. At the rave, you see a female vampire handing out vampire blood-laced drugs to the partygoers as DJ X announces to everyone that there's going to be a sacrifice. We then see the kids who drank the drugs all have started to fang out. Edgar, seeing what's happening, said he's going to go after DJ X, but before he can get to him, the female vampire cuts him off and goes after him.
Put on something nasty, X.
Edgar then slices her neck open with a broken record and impales her with a sharp cross, destroying her. DJ X then goes to Edgar and they have a sword fight as Zoe looks for the grenade Edgar dropped when the female vampire jumped him. When the DJ gets the upper hand, he goes on an evil villain monologue, which gives Alan enough time to show up and stop X from killing Edgar. They distract him enough for Zoe to find the grenade and they use it, allowing them to kill DJ X. The crew untie Peter and then things take an interesting turn. Not only do the partygoers not go back to normal, but Quinn then starts having a makeout session with her supposed brother Peter. After Zoe notices the sedative they were using on Peter was garlic, Edgar deduces that Peter was the alpha. Peter admits the whole deal they just did was to interfere with a power struggle between vampires, and Gwen was just a fangirl who wanted to be turned. Unfortunately for Gwen, Peter instead chooses to kill her on the spot and takes off. After a goodbye where it becomes clear Zoe has a thing for Edgar, he and Alan head after Peter. Peter subdues Alan, then manhandles Edgar while informing him that his issue was with DJ X, who wanted to make everyone a vampire, which would kill their food supply, which is why he wanted him dead, and he got the Frog Brothers involved because he wanted them to control the vampire population by killing all of the ones X made and knew they were capable. When Edgar turns the offer down to be Peter's personal vampire exterminator, Peter makes Alan attack Edgar. They fight, and just as it looks like Alan is going to kill Edgar, Edgar sprays Peter with water, then blesses it, causing Peter to explode and Alan to revert back to being human. The film ends with Alan enjoying his newfound ability to be back in the sun, and it being revealed that Zoe the whole time was actually a werewolf, which is how she knew all the secrets to killing vampires. Thanks for watching. If you like these recaps, please leave a like and subscribe and hit the bell icon to know every time I update. There is now an option to be a channel member where you'll get access to exclusive recaps from late night vampire catalogs like Showtime, Cinemax After Dark, USA Up All Night, and much more. If you want to help my channel grow, please check out my Patreon, where members can get exclusive content that can't be uploaded on YouTube, along with download options. Link is in the description.